I'm going to go ahead and do my first ever review video today. If I end up, it's really more of an experiment to see like if I'm going to end up being a person who likes to read things, if I'm a person who ends up liking to read things, memorize it, and then talk to you all, or whether or not it's an off the cuff or some kind of mixture of those. So what we're going to do is I'm going to review quickly two live action series. I might say a brief thing about a third one because I'm excited about it, and then I'm going to go through some anime series, and then there's like two books that I'll say a brief bit about that I read recently that I really enjoyed and think it's worth sharing with you all. So as far as genres go, this is going to be pretty open. It'll be basically whatever I'm interested in. You'll probably end up finding that I have a fairly broad range of interests, but that I tend to really get passionate maybe only for a few, but it also depends on how well those are told, right, in story format. So that being said, I'm going to start off with something that actually irritated me, which not all things do, but this one did, and that was Requiem on Netflix. It's slow-paced, and it's not like a bad thing always at all, because it can actually lend itself to the story, but in this case it really didn't. The main character, Matilda, was fairly insufferable. I tried to be patient with her, given the fact that a lot of times what she was going through as a character, without going to spoiler territory, was fairly traumatic, and given that I don't have any personal experience with such trauma, that I'm like, okay, well, how do I know that a person may not actually react this way? I don't. So given that, I was trying to be patient with her, but through the whole series, I just kind of felt like it was slow. The storytelling sometimes was a little jumbled. I didn't always feel like that it had, I don't know, I just didn't really care a lot about the main character, which is pretty awful, but it had mainly to do with how she was treating the other characters. I felt like some of the things she was deciding to do and how she was interacting with folks, again, without getting into spoiler territory, maybe I was just expecting too much from somebody who's supposed to be kind of like a horror movie main character type heroine person, but she just was not very smart with some things. And again, I was trying to be patient, understanding that the tremendous amount of trauma that character has been through, it probably wouldn't make a person think clearly at all. And yeah, but there was just, it's fine. Like, I'm okay watching a series where a character is either painful to watch or becomes painful to watch off and on, or but not during like the whole thing, and not even in like a way that I feel like is necessarily productive for the long-term character development. And that's, I think, what really bothered me about it, was that it was slow paced and not in the right way, because again, that can be done effectively with storytelling if you know how to use the pauses and the storytelling in an effective way to give somebody room to breathe, like the viewer, right? But in this case, I didn't feel like a lot of the scenes always served any purpose, and that was annoying. And then the main character was fairly insufferable, despite me trying to be understanding about it. And I don't want to spoil it, so I'm not going to, but I'll just say that the ending didn't leave me feeling very fulfilled. I felt like I had watched several episodes, and then I did get invested in some of the characters. It definitely did. And I think you'll probably get invested in a lot of the same ones I did. And I don't want to talk too much about it, because again, I take that really seriously. I'm like, I don't really want to tell people which ones it was. I want to see if they end up liking them too. It was, I don't hate it. I don't hate the series, but I really hope, I don't know if there's a season 2. If there was, that would make that ending not as painful, but it just really left a lot of things unanswered for me. And given a lot of the supernatural content they were trying to cover, I found it to be interesting because they went there, which is a very particular kind of occult practice that I don't want to get into. But being that I have a background in interreligious studies, and given my long-term health, genetic, chronic health conditions, I've always had an interest in what people perceive as the real. So things like psychology, philosophy, religion, spirituality, that's always been my bag. So the fact that they went there and brought that element and that particular tradition into the storyline, and it not being totally, I mean, it's not totally being treated with disrespect. It's being treated, I guess, with some, but it's not nearly, I think, as bad as it would have been had, you know, like the United States and my country and Hollywood had gotten a hold of it, because we just are super cringe world when it comes to a lot of that kind of thing. So I don't want to talk about what particular tradition it is, but it's there, and it was interesting to watch how Requiem handled it for the duration of the series once it was revealed. So yeah, and I don't really feel like that's a spoiler, because it's a fairly cliche storyline in a lot of ways. So, you know, when you go to a small town, there's only so many things that could be going on, right? Anyway, that being pushed aside, I'd like to get to what I really, really care about. I have not been this passionate about a live action series in forever, because normally I'm like, okay, I'm like an anime fan, and I like also some Adult Swim shows, like I love the Venture Brothers and things like that, and Metalocalypse, which I'll never understand nor forgive Time Warner for not ever giving us our final season. But anyway, this is great. Dark is a German Netflix series, and please don't, okay, like if you're not into, you know, settings that are dark or are kind of, let's face it, angsty or things like that, you may not want to watch it, but I think you should. Just give it a chance, as far as like if you are interested in time travel, if you're interested in drama, right? And different things going on with complex characters and characters that actually develop over time, and actually a wide field of characters that are all interconnected in a very believable and satisfying way. This show is for you. Like, it's pretty good. I feel like I'm definitely becoming obsessed with this. I am going to, I'm actually on episode 3 again, because I'm rewatching it with my my family, and so I'm rewatching it right now, and I just gotta say, this series is one that you will be able to rewatch and notice things, okay? So if that's also one of your things, that you enjoy series like that, go watch it. So for those of you who don't know, there are time travel elements. Arguably, we kind of don't really know, maybe some supernatural elements. And it's fascinating. I feel like, unlike Requiem, it actually, the way it used the slower paced scenes actually added to the atmosphere and the story, and the way it did that, I felt, it's like when you read a novel, right? And something happens that's major, or something that startles you, and then that chapter ends, or something, you know, like that. It gives you space as a reader, in this case it would be a viewer, right, to breathe and kind of process what just happened. And during that time, it still gives you kind of those scenes that you would have, like in a novel, where there's still things going on with the characters or in the setting, right, that are things that you might be curious about. And it also goes there. It uses that kind of format, I feel like, and I feel like it really works. And it's not always slow-paced either. In fact, I'd argue a lot of things happen in each episode. A lot of them, which is another reason why it's such a... it's so good to be able to go back and rewatch it. Like, yeah, I can't say more about it without becoming spoiler central, because there's just so much going on, okay? Yeah, I think it's... The other thing that really made me happy is normally I'm able to figure out what's going on pretty early in a lot of stories, even if they have twists and turns. And in this case, I was able to predict certain things, but I wasn't able to predict all of them, which for me is really rare. So that was such a delight and a treat to be able to actually watch something, and it stumped me, because it normally doesn't happen. And I think that happens for a lot of viewers nowadays, right? Because we've been so oversaturated with media that a lot of us are already able to anticipate a lot of those twists and turns that really aren't as much anymore for us, right? This series, Dark, there will probably be at least one or two things that you're not going to be able to figure out. It is greenlit for a second season, so I'm super excited. The ending was kind of like, whoa. So yeah, I do want to say I watched it in German with English subtitles because even though I'm not like a purist when it comes to that, I do personally feel like that in order to respect the actors and the country in which it came from, so its country of origin, it's best if you can actually watch it in its original language, because I just feel like some of that emotion is probably going to be gone if you watch it in a dubbed version, or if you watch it with, like, I don't always want to say this is always the best, like I said before, but I feel like that I'm trying to think of the right words for it. It's really more like, it's not that there isn't ever a good dub. Sometimes there are good dubs because like the original acting was not maybe as great. This is totally not the case here. I did try and watch a few minutes of it in the English dub, so was there any? Yeah, like it was okay. It was not great. It was okay. It was doable. It was doable. So if you need to do it that way, like, do it. Because at this point, I just really want people to watch it. I feel like it's really interesting. I feel like it plays with a lot of different political and or economic things as well. I don't really feel like I don't think that's the main purpose of this show, but personally for me, the way I read it was there are some elements that are in there that are kind of related to that, just as much as there are elements of like time travel and all those things. So again, it's very much a show about people, and if you're interested in any of the elements I just described, go watch it. And a brief note for the last series, all these are on Netflix, is that there's going to be Medici the Magnificent coming out, which is a sequel to Medici's Masters of Florence. And when I first watched that a few years ago, I was really sad because by the time I binge watched it and ended, there was no fandom for it. There was like zero fandom for it. So I was kind of like out there, you know, like that meme where somebody has like a beach chair and they're sitting out in the middle of a field and they're like, it's just me and, you know, I'm the only fandom. I'm the only person in the entire fandom. There's no one here. And it was kind of like that. But now there's more of a fandom for it. In fact, it did so well that it's already been greenlit for a third season that's in production. So The Magnificent takes place actually a number of years after Masters of Florence, and it focuses on Lorenzo. And for those of you who are kind of like, what are you talking about? Da 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 da. It has to do with Italian Renaissance. So it's set in Italy during the Renaissance. Medici, big family, powerful family. They even had family member that became Pope. I'm kind of looking forward to the stabbing in the church just because I'm interested to see how that's portrayed. Yeah, lots of drama going on there. If you enjoyed shows like The Borgias or you watch Versailles or anything like that, watch Medici. Watch it. So there's a lot of cool stuff going on Netflix for people like me who are interested in shows that are not developed here in the United States, and for shows that cover a lot of different ground as far as, you know, genres go. So getting to anime, Mob Psycho 100 is back! So yes, Mob is back. I'm going to be watching that, already started. I don't know how to pronounce this, so if I'm not pronouncing it right, please. No, it's not intentional. The Morose Mononokean has a Mononokean, I don't know, has a second season. And I know that I really enjoyed the first season a lot. I like its aesthetic. If you're into supernatural anime where men are the main characters and it has like a hint of slice of life and there's some adventure, that anime is for you. There's Saintia show. I'm also hoping I'm saying that right. And that's, of course, based off of like that legacy anime, which is Saint Seiya. And I've seen the original a long time ago, but I'm fuzzy on it. So before I started watching this one, I went ahead and kind of cheated, right? I cheated. And I went back and I read some of the lore and all the different, you know, about the world that it inhabits. And it's actually a pretty important entry, maybe, we'll see, in that universe, because traditionally they're really, I guess the women normally had masks and they weren't allowed to not wear masks and be saints. I think the penalty was pretty severe. I think it was death, if I remember right. And in this case, it's like the main characters don't wear masks. They're women, and they serve Athena instead of it being the men serving Athena. So it's very much more like a girl power kind of thing, which I'm so 90s by saying that, but it is in some ways. My personal favorite so far, and I'm sure it will be, unless they really do something wrong in the adaptation, which is Boogiepop and Others, because I fell in love with Boogiepop the moment I saw it on Tech TV in the early 2000s, and I would watch it whenever I had the chance. And yeah, so Boogiepop Phantom is actually the one that was on Tech TV, and it's like that one's after this, so Boogiepop and Others is a prequel to that. So if it seems bewildering, it's because technically the sequel came out first all those years ago, and this is the prequel to that. But there is a light novel omnibus by Seven Seas Entertainment that's available here in the United States, and you can buy it from them. I have it over in my bookshelf. I probably should have grabbed it and waved it here, but it's pretty cool. It'll help you process what's going on better. You can also, if you want to, spoil it for yourself and look it up. That's always an option. If you're a little confused in the first 2 episodes, you'll quickly should realize that it's a point of view anime so far, and that's probably gonna turn some people off, but for me it doesn't. If you miss stuff like, for me, my favorite anime is actually Serial Experiments Lain, which should both scare you and also tell you kind of what kind of person I am. The second one's Outlaw Star. That if you miss like shows like that, if you miss shows that are kind of spooky to be in and tend to lean more towards realism in their design and their aesthetic, so shows like Lane, shows like Ergo Proxy, shows like the one that I could never pronounce properly, which is Technolize. I can't, I'm sorry. I just can't pronounce it. If you miss anything like that, you're probably gonna like Boogiepop and Others. So give it a chance. Fairy Tail, the final season, is on right now, and I know that this is such like a polarizing show, because a lot of people are like, oh, it sucks so much, for like a multitude of reasons. And I'm like in the camp where I'm like, hey, I started watching this show when I was in real shit. God, my life was in a real shitty place, okay? So getting to sit there and watch silly adventures based on friendship, I didn't give a damn that the power dynamics were off, that it was cliche. I didn't care. I wanted to watch something that I could like look at it and not be stressed out by it, because I had been going through so much shit at that point in my life. So I watched Fairy Tail for that reason. I am watching the final season. I'll be sad when it's gone. Yeah, so if you don't like it, good for you. If you like it like I do, good for you too. Don't give a damn. I enjoy it. That's all you need to know. So Radiant is also what people have been joking is Fairy Tail Light. I don't necessarily agree with it. I can see where that idea would come from for sure. But I was at first irritated by its pacing. And this is the show that is a manga in France that they adapted into an anime, right? And this started last season. And its pacing was slow, but, and how it was being told was kind of irritating at first. But once you reach Rumble Town, oh man. Okay, so yeah, Rumble Town is, I feel like, the turning point for this series, hopefully. Because the last few episodes concerning it have made everything a lot more interesting. I feel like the characters are finally getting developed more. And I didn't give up on it initially because I'm a sucker for series that involve magic. And being that it was also a French manga that was adapted into an anime, I wanted to stick it out and support like the cooperative endeavors that people are trying to do. And at this point, I'm really glad I have. So again, Radiant's also one of those shows where people are like about it, and I'm just like, no, if you either like that kind of show or you don't, it's fine. So moving on, my roommate is a cat. If you care about kitties and you don't mind grumpy authors who happen to find a cat and they're totally antisocial, as an antisocial person basically, learning how to process dealing with an animal, if that's your kind of thing, you'll like it. I actually cried at the end of the first episode because I'm a sap, but I couldn't tell whether or not it was because of the anime or it was because the show was making me miss my cat, Tiger. and my other cat, Miss Priss, or Socks, who passed away a few years ago. So I couldn't tell, but I guess the fact that it provoked that emotion in me is fair enough to say that, like, yeah, it's pretty well told. It's a pretty well told story if it already did that to me. So, the only other things I'm gonna say is The Prince of Smiles. I'm not sure else, or excuse me, not The Prince, The Price of Smiles. There is like a guy who's a knight who's trying to pretend like he's like the prince-like character for this. Well, she's like a queen, but it's just, I'm not sure I'll stick with it because it isn't even the fact that it's cliche, because there is nothing new under the sun. Get over it. But it's just, I don't know if I have the patience for it right now. It's going to depend heavily on a lot of the same things other things do that I follow, right? Like character development, the pacing, whether or not the dialogue is interesting or the world is interesting at all. And I will say this much. If you watch the first episode of The Price of Smiles, make sure you watch it to the very end, okay? Because if you don't, you're going to miss something major. That's all I'm going to say about that. And because I'm trash, there's two other things. That Meiji Tokyo Renka, if I was in middle school or high school, I would probably be like, oh my god, and I would watch it. But I watched it just because I needed something that my brain didn't have to think very hard about. And be like, oh look, bishies. But that, yeah, no, it was cringy. It was cringy for me on a number of levels. But yeah, it was okay. Will I watch more of it? Probably, because I'm trash. But at least I can admit it. And the other show that's like that for me is Date Live 3, because I love Kurumi as much as I love Euclid from So This Is a Zombie. Yeah, so I'm not exactly a person who's averse to watching harem or reverse harem-based shows. I will watch them, again, usually because my brain needs something that's not very hard to watch or I don't have to think a lot about. So, and they can be funny sometimes if they're not busy being cringy, which is most of the time. So that's all the anime, and there's 2 books that I'm briefly going to mention that I found at the library that I was like, oh, I like these. Both of them are mystery, and both of them are historical fiction. Okay, so it's either your bag or it's not. One of them is called A Prisoner in Malta, a Christopher Marlowe mystery, and it's by Phillip DePoy. And if you're interested in like Elizabethan era stuff, you might like it. I loved it because it had like different sword fights and other things in it, and there was a lot of action. The dialogue was witty. It was very fast paced. You know, like you read that thing and boom, it's done. And there were actually a lot of interesting things that happened in it. So yeah, if you like fast paced, like action packed adventures that are full of intrigue and, you know, stuff that people adore who tend to like things that are more like Elizabethan Europe, which is, you know, court drama, you'll like it. There's not too much court drama. It's mainly like kind of this rough and tumble adventure. So yeah, check it out. The second one is A Requiem in Vienna, which is a Viennese mystery by J. Sidney Jones. And that one was really more for like people who are interested in European musical history. And it is a part of a series. It's a Vienna mystery series. And I haven't read the other ones yet. Oh, and the previous one, a Christopher Marlowe mystery, has a sequel, but there's only 2 total of that one. This one looks like the Vienna mystery series has a lot more entries in it. And it's great. I had fun reading it. I don't think you need to know Viennese history or European music history to enjoy it. I liked the characters. They were memorable. The setting and the storytelling, very immersive too, just like the previous book I talked about. And it is also fast-paced, and it also has good dialogue. One of the things that I love is when the dialogue is actually not only believable, but if it's appropriate, it can have like the ability to be just witty and just kind of cutting when it needs to, and I love that. And both of these books do that. So, yeah, those are the 2 books. So yeah, that's my huge, like, hey, I'm going to try reviewing all the different things. I have no idea how long this ended up being. Yeah, so We'll see. I don't know if I'll do more videos like this. I'll probably end up cutting it down or having more focused ones. But at this point, I just wanted to have some practice by being like, hey, can I do this even? I don't know. So, yeah. Hopefully you'll find something from that you enjoy. And if you don't, and you find something you enjoy that's different, good. Because that's the main point, is finding something that we all can enjoy, right? So, yeah. Until next time, I don't know when I'm going to be entering YouTube and being like, hello, more stuff again. But yeah, that's it for now. From Vegas, I'm gonna say bye-bye.